Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Grandma Show, where Tom and T chats with Bob Dub. Before we get started, please take note that the following content is aimed at a mature listening audience. Graphic and explicit language may be used at times, and listeners' discretion is advised. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual hosts or guests on this show do not necessarily express those of this or any other platform, nor of any of the sponsors of any of these platforms.
I'm not really that dangerous. I'm just walking around. You can go to sweet little guy. This is a pretty little town.
Listeners are advised that neither this platform nor its owners or agents shall be held liable for the content of this program. None of the material contained within this program may be rebroadcast, redistributed, or reused without the express written permission of the hosts or producer.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Rebel Chats, the Love Rebellion Chats. And today we're going to have Robert Van Dusen. He is another friend of ours from Mines, and we have learned a little bit more about Robert. The one thing I do know is he writes. He does a lot of writing, and he is a very funny guy. He does a lot of captioning that I like. So I'd like to turn the mic over to him and let him introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Robert Van Dusen. I'm a writer. I write primarily horror and science fiction, a little fantasy now and again. I'm teaching myself how to do 3D art, and I've been inking and coloring some of my own art, some pencil artwork that I commission for like cover art for my books and stuff like that. And I served in the Army for off and on for about 10 years or so. I think that's really all I've wanted to say just now. But
How fantastic to meet you. Thanks, Robert. Thanks for coming.
well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Nice to have a voice to connect to the writing that I see all the time. And my face is on here, but it'll be taken off, Robert, just so you know. We don't show faces. We did early on, but yeah.
Yeah, well, there's weirdos out there, so.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, Bob Dub had all these wonderful questions. I'm going to have to click over to see them, but Bob Dub, since you came up with a lot of the questions, I think you should start. I don't want you to feel like you're on the spot, Robert, but she has some really great questions.
It's an interview, so.
Yeah, help us to get to know who you are. So I'll let Bob Dub do some of these questions here.
Okay. So my first question, Robert, is why horror?
It's just something that, just from like a real early age, I was just sort of drawn to. I mean, like when, because when I was real small, I went through some bad stuff. And, I never had a lot of friends in school. I wasn't, I'm not going to lie, I was pretty freaking fat. I wasn't good at sports, but, I had my Stephen King books and, horror, like I basically grew up way back in like the early 90s. There was a show, Monster Vision on TNT, hosted by a guy named Joe Bob Briggs. And I used to watch that religiously. It was the one thing I looked forward to every week, where, he'd show just like some weird, like 80s, 90s horror movies, like from, even like back into the 70s and, just stuff you'd see in like old drive-ins and grindhouse movies, stuff like that, And it was just something I grew, I just kind of grew up watching that, and I like, it was just
part of your childhood.
Yeah.
Gosh, so you didn't manage to fit in at school. You didn't have any place where you found you could fit in. Did you love English? How did your interest in writing come?
I always, it, the two courses that I usually did like in school, it was history and like language arts and stuff like that. And well, English, and then they changed it to language arts because I don't know, but they did.
Yeah.
Like history, it just got, I just got interested in this, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would write, and it just started to do something I did for fun, and occasionally people pay me for it now. So hey, there we go.
I was thinking about that just now. Haven't you got at the top of your channel that all your ebooks are available for free?
No, that was I should actually go and change that back. I did do offers now and again
Right.
where I would give them out, but I haven't done one of those in a while. But I mean, yeah, they're pretty reasonable prices for how long the books are, and
Yes. How cool. So what was the first one you started with? When you first had something that you published, what was your story?
The very first book I ever wrote, well, I actually hate to admit it because this one is, I would try to disavow this book as much as possible because I'm not going to lie. It's a book called The Fall of Man that I wrote probably 15 something years ago now, probably. I try to disavow that one because I'm not going to lie. I was working as a security guard at the time, and I was working anywhere between 60 and 70 hours a week.
Wow.
And my sleep schedule was not good. My supervisor would give us, like, you're working from like midnight till like 3 o'clock in the afternoon one day, and then from like the next day you're working from like 2 o'clock in the morning until 6, and then you're coming back. It showed when I was writing, when I was writing that book, because it was, I actually sat down and tried to read it afterwards, after it like went through the publishing process and everything. And well, it was self-published, but I was actually really embarrassed because I don't think that I don't think there was a complete sentence in the entire thing.
How awesome.
No, it was terrible because I was so embarrassed. I'm like, oh my God, people have read this and it's got my name on it.
Yeah.
It reads like a bad Google Translate into English.
No, it's
What did I do?
I know. Isn't it amazing? I've been following a lot of Jordan Peterson's works, his
I've heard of
online.
him, but
Yeah.
I never actually watched. For some reason, YouTube is really keen to show me his videos, and I'm just like, I'm not particularly interested. Thanks.
I find his work fascinating, really fascinating, mostly because he's talking to people like me who are trying to get up out of a funk and get on with things. And one of the things that he says in this advice that he gives is, if you want to do something well, you have to be prepared to do it badly at first. And I think that's what you're saying, is that you did the one that didn't actually work so well, but now you've learned from that experience. Am I right in hearing?
Yeah, and well, the thing that I actually find kind of disturbing too is that I actually had people. Well, I think I sold like 30 copies of that, all told, completely.
Gosh.
And I actually had people come up and be like, "Oh wow, this was really good." I'm like, "You've got." I'm like, "Thanks." But like in the back of my head, I'm like, "You've got really low standards." That was terrible. That book was terrible.
It's very interesting that you're so critical of yourself. I think what tells me is that you're really, really happy with the way you are right now.
Yeah, I mean, like I still go back once in a while and I'll read stuff that I wrote, and I'm like, oh, I can do this better, or I can do, change this phrase here. And eventually it just got to the point where I'm like, no,
Yes.
we're just gonna set that off to the side. We'll keep those around for reference in case I want to do something in that later. But we're not touching it anymore. We're not changing anything anymore.
Yes.
Because I will literally, because I will just keep nitpicking that thing to pieces. This particular book, I will keep picking it apart and trying to change stuff, and I won't do anything else. So
I hear you. I do that when I'm painting. I go on and on and on, putting painter on until like you actually can't see the picture that I was painting. Okay, so I want to ask you another question. It's really interesting that you say that when you were a security guard, that's when you started off. How does your military history inform what you write?
Well, like my Outbreak series of zombie fiction novels, I actually took, a lot of stuff that like I knew from being in the Army and used that to kind of like get everything, moving in a certain direction. And just like, one of my main characters in that series is, in the Air Force. And luckily for me, I had I've got a couple of buddies who were in the Air Force. So I would be like, hey, I know how us Army guys do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What's the I know you Air Force guys are different. What should I use? And they'd be like, okay, yeah, here, and I'd be like, oh, cool. Cause,
Yeah.
thanks. And,
So you have peers who you can
Yeah.
collaborate with. How interesting.
Yeah. And like, it was kind of funny because one of the early criticisms I got of the Outbreak series is that, like, because, like when I was in the Army, I was friends with guys for a year and a half before I knew their first names.
Yeah.
Because everybody in the military, we all call each other by our last names.
Yeah.
Or our rank. It's just how you talk to each other.
Yes.
Like my characters, like all the military, all the characters who are like, Phrase was a Air Force reservist. Lacey was a Marine Corps reservist. And when they're talking to each other, they're calling each other by their last names. But there's civilian characters in the book too, and they're all calling each other, the other characters by their first names, and so it was getting really confusing to the reader. And I'm like, that's kind of how it is. And so eventually, I just got, I went, I kind of realized, okay, these people pointing this out actually do have a valid argument. I'll go back and change that. So I did. Because I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see where, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yes.
And a lot of my, the people I let read the stories as I was publishing and stuff, are military people, military guys. So it's, I never got that feedback from them because it seemed perfectly natural to them too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I spent almost 17 years as a Navy wife, and I don't think anybody ever called my husband by anything but Disbro. That was his last name, and that was all. Somebody called him Dizzy Disbro. They had nicknames that went with them, but no, hardly anybody went by a first name. No, and I have to say, I love horror stories too. I grew up with science fiction and horror. My mom, we used to go to the library and we used to wipe out whole shelves of science fiction and horror. So I grew up reading Stephen King. Heinlein.
Yeah, I like Heinlein, Robert Heinlein too.
Yeah, so you're right along what I grew up with and what I grew to love. And I'm switching back to more science fiction now because I'm reading Erigmar's books, but I really love how you, with your books, how you put them on your page, and you just give enough to tease, and you have some where you have alternate endings where you kind of make it the way
Yeah.
you want it. I like that. A
Yeah, the
lot of
choose
books
your
you
own
do.
adventure stories. That's it's nothing. It's a genre you don't see anymore. And I'm like, hey, here's a website thing that'll let you write them, and I'm like, this is kind of fun. So and plus it kind of lets me kind of take the gloves off a little bit because
Mhm.
I can actually have like horrible endings, and you just kind of got to go with it, and you can go back and see what happens when you go somewhere else.
Mhm. I like that idea. Now, I know there's movies that were made that way for a while. My grandson has a couple of movies that they have
Yeah,
different. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen one that was like a Dungeons and Dragons CGI movie. That was a really crappy CGI movie, but well, it was. I imagine it was okay for like 1992. You know, that's the thing. Like because like this whole month on my Minds channel, I'm challenged myself to review a horror movie. Well, to recommend a horror movie every day, and I
Mhm.
keep having to go. Okay, were these special effects bad to begin with? Or did these guys just never expect that, 40 years later, HD TVs were going to be a thing?
Yeah.
Did they look good? It's
I
like,
know one of the scariest ones I ever saw was Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I look at it now and I just laugh. But when I was a little girl, that movie scared the bejesus out of me. It
oh,
really
Bela
did.
Lugosi scared the hell out of me when I was a kid as Dracula.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you ever want to figure out how, like the word lurk,
Yeah.
don't look it up in the dictionary. Just look up on YouTube Bela Lugosi. That dude could lurk. you know,
Yes, you could.
yeah.
I've spent many a weekend. I'm older than you probably. I'm almost 65 now.
Yeah, I
And
just
I
turned
on
40 on
Saturday,
Monday, so
yeah, you just turned 40, that's right. So you are younger.
yeah.
But I grew up when there was only like 3 channels and a local affiliate, and
Yeah, I
we
remember that
watched,
too.
yeah, on
Yeah,
Sunday afternoons, all those Bela Lugosi movies and the
yeah,
Wolf Tales, and oh my
yeah.
God.
It was a big thing when we got cable, and we had like 40 channels. Holy crap!
Yeah, I remember that
We're
too.
moving up in the world. We got cable now.
I don't even have cable anymore.
No,
I have,
me either.
there's a huge TV in my room. There's one in the living room, and my son has an HD one down in the basement. And that's 3 TVs that are used as computer monitors. We
Yeah,
don't
I
watch
watch.
TV.
Yeah, I have tons of streaming stuff, and you can find anything on YouTube these days, and most of
Yeah,
it's probably not supposed to. A good portion of it's probably not supposed to be there, but
it is.
full full movies, and
Mhm.
I can't find this older movie I wanted to see on on Amazon or any of the other streaming things I've got. Let me check YouTube real quick. Oh, hey, there it is. It's a DVD. It's a Blu-ray rip too. Awesome.
We're
Better watch this quick
spoiled
before they
now.
figure out it's there.
And everybody says there's nothing on television. I don't really, I think my grandson still watches a couple of, he is a superhero nut. He has to
Mm.
watch Flash, and he was watching Supergirl, and they all went kind of too woke for his taste, but he's still hanging on to Flash. He likes that
Mm.
couple on there.
Mm.
But none
Yeah.
of us, my son, I don't, neither one of us watch TV anymore. We still watch old movies every once in a while, or an old TV series that we like,
Yeah.
but nothing
Yeah.
recent.
Well, I mean, like, you talk about stuff going woke or whatever, but like, I used to love the show, the old Law and Order. I used to
Hmm.
love that show, and it just got boring.
Yeah.
We got, because I'm like, I'm watching it, and like inside of 15 minutes, I'm like, I know who did it.
Yes.
I know who did it. It's the white guy in a suit.
Yep.
It's,
Yep.
but this episode has a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy in a suit. He definitely did it. Or the big twist, the big Law and Order twist was, okay, somebody else might have done the crime that they're investigating.
Yes.
But the big twist was, it was the evil white guy who made him do it. I'm like, you're not even trying anymore, are you?
No. No. Isn't that amazing? They've got boring. They've got a story. And we're all saying, okay, fine, we watched the story, it was interesting. Let's move on. No, let's stay on this story.
I wish they had good television again. I remember some of the things I grew up with, and I really miss things like Lassie. I loved Lassie.
Yeah.
I really miss the wholesome. I know it got a little sickly sometimes, but some of the stuff that they had back then, I don't see why we can't do it now. People and their pets and things that we love. Andy of Mayberry. I mean, it wasn't all about being a cop. Most of it was about being in a small town, we've lost our way.
Wow.
We have, haven't we? We have. However, at least we have entertainment now. Robert?
And we have books like Robert was, we have people right on Minds. We don't even have to look for these top seed ones that are always guaranteed a book. Like we were talking in our chat the other day about Stephen King. I don't want to get political, but man, he has changed so much. I can't even identify with the person anymore. And I tried to read his last book and I cannot. I just haven't bought a book in like 2 years from him. I don't know. It's just,
well, I mean,
people change too much.
Well, I actually kind of have to give him at least a little credit because, yes, I grew up reading Stephen King. I grew up reading a lot of his books, and so he's been kind of an influence on my own style of writing and stuff like that. But I also have to give him the credit that he's shown me how not to interact with people on social media.
Oh, really?
It's like, you just can't treat people that, calling them names, and you just, that's why I'm like, I don't talk about much, I'm like, here's what I'm working on. Here's some art I did. Here's a picture of my cat. Here you go.
Really?
I'm not throwing out any big, I'm not calling it, insulting anyone. I'm trying to I'm just trying to kind of raise the tone a little bit, because it's, it just strikes me as low class if you're going to, be calling people names. It just makes you look bad,
So
I don't do
Stephen did that. Sorry, fill me in on what happened. Was Stephen King very rude online?
During the Trump years, apparently, I'm not on Twitter, but I have seen screenshots of some of his tweets, and he was obnoxious to people.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And well, and I mean, like, the last book I ever got, I got it for Christmas, but I'd been I'd been a fan of his Dark Tower series since I read it when I read the first book, I think when I was in middle school. Yeah, I think I was in 6th grade, I think, when I read the very first started reading this series.
Right.
The Gunslinger?
Yes.
Is that the first? Yeah.
And I'd been, kind of hoping, because it was way back in the day. There was no internet. There was no Twitter. There was nothing really, I'm like, he'll get around to it eventually. And, so I would be like, but, like every book he came out, he published, I would scrimp and save and, ask for it for Christmas or birthdays, or I'd be saving my allowance so that I could go out and buy it. Cause and I'd watch all those, because remember way back in the day, they used to do like every year there was like the Stephen King miniseries on ABC.
Oh yes, I
Oh,
remember.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
You know, like at least
Myth.
once or twice a year there was a big Stephen King miniseries. You know,
Mhm.
and I would watch those, and I'd watch all the movies, and because I figure, hey, let's he'll get around to finishing the Dark Tower series eventually. And then I want to say, I can't think exactly when off the top of my head. It was like 2004, 2005, I think,
Yeah.
when he finally got around to finishing the series.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, the ending was kind of disappointing, but okay, because there was like a big major plot hole that
Mm.
I'm trying not to spoil anything because people still might want to read it or whatever. But
Okay.
yeah, it was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
But what cinched it for me was when I read the afterword at the end of the very last Dark Tower book,
Yeah.
wherein Stephen King basically told everyone that, yes, I know this ending sucks. This is the ending you're getting. I know that it sucks. I don't care that it sucks. I have your money now.
Wow.
So too bad. This is the ending you're getting. And if you try to use any of the clues in these books to try to find me, good luck with that. You're going to end up lost in the woods in northern Maine. So have fun with that.
Hmm.
And at that point, I ended. It's the only time in my life I've actually been angry. I actually got so mad that I literally threw the book across the room
God. Wow,
because
that's
I'm like,
intense.
that was the tone. That was the overall tone of the
Yes.
afterword.
Yes. Gosh.
And yeah, and I'm like, okay, well, guess what? I'm never going to buy another one of your books. I'm never going to see another one of your movies. I'm not going to, no, I'm done with you.
Gosh.
If that's the way, if that's the way you want to treat 13, a guy who has been supporting you all these years, who,
Mm.
would scrimp and save and, save his pennies so that he could get the hardcover of your books as soon as they dropped because, he really, because, he's a big fan of yours and,
Mhm.
just wanted you to finish, was figured you'd get around to ending this Dark Tower series eventually.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the way you want to treat me, huh? Okay.
Mm.
Oh, we're done. I'm not buying. No, I,
I
I don't.
followed that series too. I had every book of his
Mhm.
except on writing, I think. I had every book he had. And I was so into those Dark Tower because I could see the potential in them. And I could have imagined such a great ending. But like you said, it was kind of a letdown. I can't disappoint anybody telling them the story, but it gives you the idea of this hero that's going to be able to solve everything. And at the end, it's just like nothing. Oh, it's
Yeah,
just,
it didn't matter. No, all that stuff you thought about, nothing mattered. Nothing mattered at all.
yeah. And when he said it came from the poem Child Roll into the Dark Tower came, oh my gosh, I'm a English nut. I didn't stick with it in college because I was trying to find something more appealing money wise. And none of them worked, but I've always been a literary type. I've always read. And when I saw his reaction at the end of it, I literally almost idolized the guy because a lot of things he said made so much sense to me. The idea of the thinnies that worlds could collide, the other saying he had, there are other worlds than these.
Yeah.
The thought of there is something beyond here, but he never pulled any of that into his stories. I have to go back and look at it and say, I think of all the things he wrote, the best one has to be The Stand now. I was hoping he'd give a great ending to the Dark Tower, but
Well, even The Stand, I'm like, ah, it's great right up until again the third act. You know,
Mhm.
again, not spoiling The Stand, but his protagonist could have stayed home. They could have stayed in Boulder. They had zero impact on the plot. They could have just stayed home. Yeah,
Yeah,
they.
yes. A lot of his stuff is unsatisfying at the end, I have to say.
Well, I mean, endings are hard to stick, but you know, it's kind of I mean, how many good like think about how many good television series have you seen that have actually had a good satisfying finale.
Satisfying.
It's really hard to stick, but it's
Yeah. That makes me think of the TV show Lost. I thought it was going to be such a great show, and the ending was,
I don't know. I saw
eh.
like I think I saw about the first third of the first episode of that show. I was just like, no, 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 we're done here. Right about the time that they kept the polar bear the size of a city bus in the head with a Glock and it died, and I'm like, no, 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 we're done. We're done.
Yeah.
My suspension of disbelief just done kaput.
Yeah.
You can stretch it so far, and then it just goes kapwang. And no, no, we're done. This is just dumb. Is there any?
Oh, I can so identify with that. It must be a really, really hard experience for somebody like you who's had that model or writer's model, and then to find this terrible flaw in them. That must have been a real sense of being.
Well, I mean, I can even learn from It's like, yes, I've learned. He's a big influence on my own particulars. One of my big influences,
Yeah.
and well, it's also a big influence on. I can see what he did wrong, and I can learn from that too. So, at least in my opinion, I know you're not supposed to criticize Stephen King because you'll end up getting all of the hate, but like literally all of the hate. You'll just get all of it
Gosh, how
because
interesting. Because people are blindly loyal, just despite his actual failure.
you can, yeah. I mean, he's a human being just like the rest of us. He's got his but I've got my own flaws. We've all got flaws. None of us are perfect. It's part of the human condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sure is. I could list mine. Oof, we would be here a few hours. Okay, so I really would like to go back, if you don't mind, Robert, go back
Yeah,
to your military career. Did you say you were
yeah.
10 years in the military?
Um, Off and on. It's a weird sort of thing. I was active duty for a while, and then I was in it. What they call an inactive reserve. Basically, your name is on a list someplace, and they might call you up to come back. And then I reenlisted in the reserves for three. Pardon me, for 3 years. So
Hmm. Okay.
it somehow added up to like 10 years, and I'm like, okay, I government math. Okay, I'll take it.
You've done your stint for the country.
More or less.
Yeah. And did it change you? Did it change you?
um,
Did it make you? Because I mean, even on standby, you have to keep your wits about you because you're on standby. So it's not really like time that you're out of the army.
well, I mean, like if you're in active reserve,
Yes.
things have got to get really, really bad for them to call you up.
Yes.
I mean, you know, like literally everyone else is gone.
Okay. Yeah. So what did you do
And
during those years when you were a backup?
when I was active duty, I was in the field artillery.
Okay.
Shooting 155 millimeter howitzers. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Um,
wow, That must be
Yeah.
an experience. How many people get to do that in their lives?
Yeah. Well, if you want to know if you actually kind of want to know what it feels like to be, to be standing at the back of a howitzer, especially like the big howitzers, that's what I have experience of. If you want to know what it feels like to be standing next to one of these things when the lanyard is pulled, because I sat down and had time to think about this.
Hmm. Yeah.
um, Basically, you're going to need a couple of buddies,
Oh, yeah.
and you stand on a piece of you stand on a piece of carpet and have one of your buddies grab the other end, and then your other buddy gets one of them old down pillows. You know how they're like a freaking flail because all the down kind of collapses into the one end of it or whatever.
Yes.
And on the count of three, your one buddy pulls the carpet out from under you just as the other guy winds up and slugs you in the chest with that pillow as hard as you can.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a physical workout.
Yeah, well, because it moves the ground under your feet, and the shock, the muzzle blast, or
Yeah.
hits you, hits you
Mm-hmm.
like like smacks you in the chest. So
Gosh. So hardcore physical involvement, even though you're not
yeah,
hand to hand, you're still completely physically committed
yeah.
to the task.
Well, I mean, I was standing at the back of the gun because I was I started out driving my section's ammo vehicle, and I eventually worked my way up to being in charge of the ammo vehicle.
Right.
And basically, my job was to, we'd pull into position. I'd jump out of the gun, jump out of my vehicle, run around the side, and basically run ammo between my vehicle and the artillery piece. So I'd, jump out, grab an artillery shell, run to the back of the gun, pass it off, run back,
Oh,
grab it, grab the powder came in these big steel cylinders,
yeah.
and I'd grab one of the powders and I'd run back and get that off, and then I'd run back, get a few. I was basically running back and forth as fast as I could.
Wow, really? God,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
The lightest artillery shell I was working with was 98 pounds. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's as heavy as a person. So you were picking up a
Yeah.
person and running back and forth with them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the heavy ones were 120, but we didn't do too much with those. Because that's a white phosphorus shell, if memory serves, and we didn't shoot off too many of those because that stuff is nothing anybody should play with.
No.
We'll say that.
Yeah. So that sort of physicality and being so intensely involved in a situation, do you call on that when you're writing?
Sort yeah, I kind of do, like, because because it's like I kind of said in another interview I did. It's like, especially like zombie fiction and stuff like that. It always kind of irritates me a little bit because if the military is involved in any of these stories at all, it's either something that would make like a super special secret agent Delta Force Navy SEALs Ranger guy who makes anything that Steven Seagal's done in the last decade or so seem believable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the military is like, busy kicking puppies while they're not trying to weaponize the zombies. And like, no, it's not, it's kind of a middle ground. I hate to break it to, in the interview, I'd hate to break it to you, but a lot of, the vast majority of people in the military are just like you. We put on our pants one leg at a time, just like you do. The only difference is we then go to work in those pants and then, drive tanks or fly helicopters or something. But,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a different scale, though. It's a
right,
different level of intensity. Hey, you,
yeah,
you so your people.
uh,
So when you have the forces opposing your zombies, you're trying to make the realistic force, are you?
yeah. It's trying to make it a little bit more realistic. Like, it's like you never really know what's going on all around you all the time. You really only know what's going on directly in front of you. You know what I mean?
Interesting perspective. Absolutely, yeah.
You
Good
can,
insight. Mm.
and even something going on like directly in front, even something going on, you know, a couple hundred meters away from you, you might have absolutely no idea because you weren't looking.
Mm.
You're looking this way, and you're looking to your left, and what's going on is over there.
Yeah. So did you get wounded in the line of duty?
Well, I am a service connected. I do have service connected disability, so
Right.
I don't.
Right.
I,
So yes, in your
yeah.
and has that affected your return to the civilian world? Do you have a family,
Um,
Robert?
I'm sorry.
Do you have a family?
Yes, yeah, I have parents and a sister and nephew. My sister's Jesus, she's got 5 kids now.
Oh, right. Gosh, five, that's a lot.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
one
The
of
oldest one's the oldest one just turned 19. It's like, I guess I'm feeling older.
my baby just turned 23, and I'm like, how dare you?
Yeah, yeah. These sisters, my sister's two oldest. The one just turned 16. He's driving now. It's like, oh my gosh, when did this happen?
Yeah, crazy. And so when you came back from your tour of duty, did
Yeah.
you find it difficult reconnecting with your people that you'd left behind?
Um. uh, Well, I mean, I was stationed stateside, so I mean, it's not like
Mm-hmm.
I call, true, I hadn't seen them in a couple of years, but we'd call them. My mom would get, would call me up like every other weekend at a minimum, because if I didn't call her first, then she instantly assumed that something terrible had happened. So yeah,
Oh, dear mothers. I think I'm like that.
yeah, but
Interesting.
I mean, it was a little weird leaving active duty and then you know trying to be getting back into actually being like a regular human person again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
'Cause, it's kind of funny because like probably for the first week I was living with my folks, and probably for the first week after I got back, I would wake up and run around the house in a blind panic for about half an hour, for about the first 15 minutes, because because I'd roll over and I'd see the alarm, see that the clock on my nightstand said like 7:15. And so my first thought was instantly, I am so late. I am so dead. Oh my gosh. Because, I got so used to waking up every morning at 5:30.
Yeah. So 7 o'clock would be.
Sometimes I would give myself a treat and I'd sleep in until 5:35. But you know,
Yeah. So it was a different rhythm, a different pace.
yeah,
Able to relax. Gosh. Gosh.
yeah, or like when because I went to college I got an associate's degree in criminal justice, and um, I took a I took a creative writing class while I was in college, and I was fresh out of the army at the time, and the teacher comes breezing in the first day of class and says, pull out your notebooks. And so I dutifully pull out my notebook and open it up. And she goes, write how you feel today.
Wow. Okay.
And I just remember I spent like she wanted us to take like the first 15 minutes and just write whatever she'd throw a writing prompt at us and then just be like 15 minutes go. And she goes, write how you feel today. And I just remember sitting there for probably the first like 10 minutes, looking from the pen in my hand up to the teacher and then back down at the notebook. Before I just raise my hand, I go, ma'am, I'm afraid I'm going to need more direction.
Did she give you more direction?
No, she just kind of looked at me like kind of dumb, kind of confused, because I'm like, I don't understand what you mean, right? How I feel.
Yes.
I feel confused.
Ah,
How's that?
there you go. That's interesting. That's interesting. I wonder if that was a thing for her. I wonder if she'd ever had that before. Somebody saying that.
Yeah, I don't
Gosh.
judge, because judging from the look I got, probably not.
So you did that after you went to college after you'd been in the army, in the
Yes.
military, right? And criminal
Yes.
justice? That must be
Yeah.
fascinating. Why did you choose that?
Because I originally kind of wanted to be a police officer, and then it's like, I basically started, is the few times that test came up, it was real hard, like I failed the state trooper exam by like 1 point. I was dumbfounded. The state trooper exam had like calculus on it
Whoa.
and like geometry, and I'm like,
Why?
my one weakness, math.
Oh yeah.
Like I cannot do math at all. Like for like ages, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that with some friends of mine, and I would have to have a calculator because I could physically, like I'd roll the 20-sided die, and you're supposed to add up with whatever's on your character sheet to see if you do stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's a basic game mechanic. And I would roll the dice, and I'd just sit there looking at the number and looking at the number on my character sheet, and I'm like, what the heck is 15 plus 9? Calculator.
Yeah.
Eventually I got better at it, but because I was never good at math in school, like ever. So,
Gosh, hey. So where did you go instead then? If you decided not to go towards the policing side, what did you decide to do?
I ended up, I was a security guard for a long time, and that, I eventually got a job cleaning at my local elementary school for a few years, and
So those have just been things that have supported you, and writing
Yeah.
has been your main love.
Yeah. And well, like now, because it took them like 7 years or so of going back and forth getting my my disability pension from the Army, but they finally came across.
Wow.
And I'm basically making enough from that, and it's gotten to the point where it's really hard. It's really hard for me to actually physically do a lot of stuff anymore. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can still do stuff, just not as fast as I used to be. So
Yeah, that's so sad when that starts happening.
yeah,
I've
well,
really had to adjust to that aging thing. I suppose I thought that I was going to stay 16 forever.
no. Well, they actually had to. I've had both of my hips replaced. They actually had to replace like the first like 3 or 4 inches, I think, of both of my femurs are
Wow.
steel now. But hey, it's better than it used to be. So there's that. I can walk now and stuff. But I just can't.
Hmm.
You know.
That sounds quite criminal to me. Maybe that's too much of a strong word, but for a vet to have to fight for 7 years to be acknowledged, that seems very hard.
Well, I mean, part of it, part of it was, just the process, and part of it was I definitely could have probably, I could have definitely pushed harder. I think, my problem is that I was always just kind of like, well, they'll figure it out. It's this just takes time. No need to get upset.
Mm,
And
okay, okay. I suppose,
because yeah, it does take a lot of it. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and there's a lot of
but
there's
once
a
you got
lot
it,
of people,
once you
and
got it done, once it was sorted, do you feel
yeah,
that you've actually received the care, the what you needed?
yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the VA is a lot like, from what I've gathered, it's a lot like a lot of government-run medicine.
Mm.
It's very good at like the general practitioner stuff. Like I can call in, like if I've got, the sniffles or something, I can call my doctor at the VA and I can get an appointment relatively soonish.
Okay.
3 or 4 days max most of the time.
Right.
Where like, it took them like 3 years to decide to finally replace my hips.
Right.
You know,
That's
because it's
hard.
so, yeah, and well, they finally did it. And they were still trying to make me pay for it, and I'm like,
Mm.
no, I don't. I'm like, I don't care. I don't know who's paying for this. It's not me. I'll tell you that much. It's the doctor the VA sent me. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well.
Since you had hip replacements, you probably know a lot about pain then, Robert. Am I right?
um, it's much better now, but I mean, my part, part of the problem, is like I have a pain tolerance like a freaking dinosaur. I mean, like, the pinky on my right hand is kind of twisted. It's kind of like it's got kind of like a corkscrew thing almost going on because, I actually broke it playing soccer when I was a kid, and I didn't notice.
Ah, dude.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't particularly notice.
Gosh. So you've managed to deal with pain because you've had like a
Yeah, I just don't generally, you know, I just don't feel, like I just turned 40, and my mom still freaks out when I'm around her and I go, ow. Because she's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what's wrong? Because she learned a long time ago when I go, ow, that's probably a trip to the emergency room. you know?
oh dear.
My tolerance isn't as good as yours because I could probably have both mine replaced, but with everything else going on skeletally and physically, it really wouldn't pay for me to do it at this point. So I've learned to live with pain, but I don't think I'm nearly as good at it as you because I end up having to shut down. I
Yeah.
just literally have to shut down. It's the only way I can deal with it. A lot of the times music will help, but there are times that there is just absolutely nothing. And all I can do is just go to bed and hope I can close my eyes for a while.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's just, I mean, like, it's kind of, again, like, being in the military, oh, I'm cold and I'm sore and I'm tired and this and that, but I still got a job to do. So you just buckle down and do it.
That's a good way to be, Robert. It
Yeah.
really is.
It is.
I keep trying. I do it too, but I think I complain a little, a little too much. But that's me.
Yeah.
Teresa, I don't think that I have ever met anybody who is braver than you with what you have to go through. I think you are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Or like, if I can plug another, some other guy's YouTube channel. This um, a while ago, I started watching this guy John Lovell on YouTube. He runs a Warrior Poet Society, and the closest I can, 5 minute blurb of like his little, his group thing that he's trying to put together. It's kind of like the Boy Scouts, but with like automatic rifles and switchblades. uh, it's public service and you know being the guy to if something's going down to step in the breach and defend like you know defend like be ready to defend yourself, defend other people because it's the right thing to do, you know whether that's training with like firearms or first aid or and just listening to him and it's it kind of got me like realize like, hey, you know I signed up when I was 17 to go defend the country, and because I thought it was the right thing to do, and hey, sure, I can't do stuff as fast as I used to, but I've still got the knowledge and stuff wedged in my brain. So you know I started working out again. I've dropped like 50 pounds in the past like 8-9 months. So I'm getting it's kind of funny. I've discovered the amount of lateral stress I can put on my on where they replaced my femurs, like different doing different workout, working lifting weights and stuff is like, yeah, okay, I can only physically do about 200 pounds on this lat machine, lateral thigh machines, because that was just I can do it, but it was really unpleasant because I could feel the stress on where they replace stuff, and it's like, okay, I should probably not do that, but you know, it's just it helped me get kind of because I was kind of getting down in the dumps too, because it's like, oh, I can't do much anymore. It's it hurts to do but hey, I'm getting back in shape ish. I'm I'm not 230 pounds anymore, but I'm down to 250, so there's that.
Yeah, that's good. Why did
Yeah.
you decide to do that? Got to the
Yeah,
time.
it just kind of struck a chord because John Lovell, he's a retired Army Ranger.
Yes.
And so he's like, like, yeah, talking about like, yeah, stepping up, do, you kind of have I feel like I kind of have a responsibility,
Yeah.
because like I was paid to do, to defend people and help and do, and well, now I'm getting my pension, so you're still paying me, so you should get something for your money,
Wow.
you know,
Interesting point of
it's like, because like I was combat lifesaver certified in the Army. That's basically it's basically like a step up a little bit from like a step up a lot from like your basic Red Cross first aid training.
yes.
And so yeah, I dug out my manuals and I read them all again, and try to keep current on like I carry it's just little stuff like I carry a pressure bandage and a tourniquet with me everywhere I go, just on the off chance that,
Yes. So that you're prepared. So
yeah,
John Lovell was the guy who
yeah,
started you with this mindset. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, yeah. He kind of just watching his videos and listening to him, kind of it clicked that hey, I'm, yeah, sure, I'm still kind of broke down, but I still can have a purpose. You know what I mean?
That's not something I've ever considered before, Robert. Using your military skills to save lives. I always think of
Yeah.
the military as being people who kill
Yeah.
people.
Well, I joke that the combat lifesaver, you're trained to you're trained to keep somebody alive until somebody who actually knows what they're doing gets there.
Right.
Basically my job, as a combat lifesaver, because you're the first guy on the scene. The medic is somewhere else. So your job is to, okay, go around, okay, I will treat this guy, I will do what I can here, I will do what I can here, I will get this guy stabilized, I will, and you just go through and do do that until the medic gets there. And then when the medic gets there, you help the medic.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Gosh, how interesting that is. What a wonderful mindset to have. You're paying me, so I'll give back.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason too why, because I do have a subscribe star. I have like three people that pay there right now. But like I'll do like my little choose your own adventure stories. I'll do something, do one of those, like some 3D renders and stuff for them. But I'll still put the actual story itself still up on my Minds channel because again, you're paying my pension. You're paying my pension so that so you should get something for your money.
Gosh.
And like another part of the you're paying for my health care. So I owe it to you to use as little of it as possible.
Wow, what a fabulous attitude that is, Robert. Okay, so I asked you your first work a long time ago, and you weren't
Yeah.
so proud of it. What is your favorite? What is the one you're most proud of?
Ooh. Ooh. I'd have to say, I still like the first book in my Outbreak series. It's still one of my favorites.
Right.
But probably the thing I'm most proud of, and I don't really want to spoil it, is the afterword sort of thing in the last book of my Outbreak series, Outbreak Long Road Back.
Right.
The is probably the thing that that I'm most proud of is like the coda afterward thing. I'm trying to remember the exact word that I used, but afterward, I think.
Yeah.
Of because I wrap up a lot of some of the plot lines, and you know there's some big it's like a time jump between like where the story kind of leaves off, and then I have like a the afterward like almost a decade later,
Wow,
and
really?
yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. So did that actual happen in real life, or was that just a literary technique that you used?
Well, it was yeah. Well, the thing because the thing was I was I knew this was going to be that was probably going to be the last book in the series,
Yes.
and the thing was I knew how I basically how I wanted it to end, but I couldn't think of a to be brutally honest, I couldn't think of a really good way to get there without having to squeeze in like 2 or 3 extra books worth of filler because it would be so long. And so I'm like, time jump. Why not?
Ooh,
Serves.
what a brilliant technique to use.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm very impressed. I think that
Yeah.
sounds fantastic. I'm going to have to read the whole of your series now so that I can get the afterword.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish that I could have figured out a way to build to it, but it is. It's like, do I really want to go through? You know, do I want to put the readers through 2 or 3 books of filler.
Right.
It's like I know how it's gonna. I have an ending. I think it's a damn good ending, and I hope everybody likes it.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, for sure.
but to kind of hit on the stuff we were doing, but um, it's
Gosh.
it, yeah, it's just kind of and it's interesting how the characters. I kind of wish I could have, just because it's kind of interesting how the characters over the course of like the 3 books where you get to know them, and then there's not a whole lot of change between the time over the time jump
Hmm.
and then into the afterward. But it's kind of
Well, that's quite realistic, isn't it? I mean, the basic
yeah,
core of people doesn't actually change over time, just their experiences and outlooks.
yeah. One of the main characters, Amy Phrase, like in the time, she has due to some stuff that goes on in the first book into the second. She's she has like mild panic. She has like panic attacks around kids,
Hmm. Hmm.
and in the third book, and towards the end of the after the time jump, she ends up having a nephew.
Oh.
And so, a little kid runs up and she's like, okay, hi, hi, gives the kid a hug, and then kind of, and,
Nice.
yeah,
Lovely. So you've got that connection even
yeah.
after all that time. Wow. Robert, that sounds so good. So what do you want people to take away from your stories?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I really, at the end of the day, I just really want people to be entertained. I'm not trying to push a big, it's like these days you can't, you'd be hard pressed to find a movie that's, a book or anything that's not pushing the message.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just want you to have fun. I want you to pick up one of my books and just enjoy yourself. Have fun. You remember what fun was? Yeah.
Yeah.
We need some of that back, Robert. So keep on going the way you are, because, like you said, everything's got an agenda anymore. It's really getting old. And to just pick up a book and read it, it's such a nice change when you're in the middle of all this insanity.
Yeah. Well,
Your
just
book
like,
might be scary, but it
yeah,
it's going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
yeah. And well, or like, it's kind of funny because, like, I've been a fan of like the Aliens franchise since I was like way too little to be watching those movies. But it's just mine. It's like you um, going because I've been a fan. There's like a whole extended universe to outside of like the 4 Alien movies of like comics and stuff like that, because
Yes.
you know back since like 86, 87, they've been having comics. Dark Horse has been making Alien comics.
Right.
And then just like recently, I've the past few years I've been they're going back and retconning stuff, and I'm like, this is bad, stop.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't even read a comic book anymore that doesn't have some agenda in it. My son has taken back a whole bunch of Superman comics because he's disgusted. It's not Superman anymore. It's all agenda. So it's really hard to find something that you can read and not get dragged into all of this right now. So it's nice to know that there is other things we can read out there and that you have it right there. And that's one thing we really like to do, everybody that we brought on here that has something to showcase, to say, hey, this is what you do. This is what you're good at. And one thing that we haven't mentioned is that you are coloring your own work now. And you also, I think you'd be a great I know you haven't done it, but the way you caption funny things just makes me laugh. I haven't read a lot of your stuff, but I think it would be funny if you could put some of the humor that you put in these captions that you've done
Well,
for me over the years.
well, you just mentioned it. Just made me think of in. I want to say it was because it's been so long since I've actually read my own stuff. Because once again, I keep changing things. Um, one of my one of my favorite lines from I think it was the first Outbreak book, because the characters end up going through a hospital trying to find some medical supplies, and needless to say, it's kind of full of zombies. And one of the phrase one of the main characters, she in the course of the book she finds a hand grenade, and she's kind of like, there's a bunch of zombies between in the waiting room, and her friends in the car, vehicles are outside, and there's a bunch of zombies between her and where she's got, the way out. So she pulls out the hand grenade, and she's kind of like, well, I think I've played enough Call of Duty. I think I can figure out how this works. Throws, chucks the grenade in there, and I described it. I described the result as, if memory serves, I'm trying to quote exactly, but I might not have it exact. The result looked like if someone had set off an M80 under a pile of rotten hamburger that'd been covered in maple syrup.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Gross. Oh, gross. I can just so imagine that. Ugh.
But we're laughing. Isn't it
Yeah.
nice to laugh? Oh, it's so nice.
Yes.
I mean, it's gross, sure, but I mean, it's like
Yes.
been like I grew up watching a lot of the Italian giallo horror movie, like
Okay.
Spaghetti westerns.
well, no, Mario Bava, the one he's done a bunch. I can't think of a bunch of other directors, but yeah, they're weird and surreal and gory as heck.
Yeah.
It's and I mean, because I'm trying to remember. I want to say is one movie. I want to say it's zombie, but I'm not sure. I can't think of off the top of my head. Again, I should have taken notes or something. But like there's one scene where this character gets her eye poked out by like this big splinter.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were so low budget, they actually got in a lot of legal trouble because they actually just broke into a morgue and poked a corpse in it. And, like, oh my God. And it's like, can you picture somebody in Hollywood doing that today?
Imagine.
I mean, those like they're fun too, because like the older Italian horror movies, because they just did not care. They would blatant like the one movie I just mentioned, Zombie, is supposed to be like, it was marketed in Italy as a sequel to Night of the Living Dead.
Uh-huh.
And they were just they just went with it because they basically knew that like the studio who put out Night of the Living Dead would have to sue them in Italy.
Right.
And the legal system is so convoluted in Italy that they're like, we know that you trying to sue us just isn't going to be worth your time. Because it's going to cost you so much money to try to sue us. So we're going to just do whatever we want.
Oh, those were good days.
We're just like blatantly like ripping off like Alien and like whatever big horror movie came out recently. They're just like blatantly ripping it off and marketing is like, yes, this is a sequel to no, it has nothing to do. We just know you won't, we just know you won't sue us, MGM. So we're gonna say it's like,
Wow.
Your captioning of animals, okay, that you've done with us, with Rebel and I on
yeah.
Minds, it's based on the Doge meme, am I right?
I just kind of whatever kind of pops into my head when I look at the picture. So
Yeah. I love the what you say. What's the thing that you say about the kakapo that I put up? The something about chickens?
the beach chickens.
The beach chickens.
Chicken.
Oh
I
man.
just kind of well, I also have this thing where I just kind of call things what I think they should be because it makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Travel
So
size murder cat.
Oh, that's
yes,
a good one too.
because it can easily fit in one of those cat carriers, so you can take it with you. You might not want to, but
He makes me laugh all the time. He hasn't done as many lately, but boy, for a while there, for about 2 months, you were on a roll. I'd put up one and I didn't know what to say, and you'd put the perfect thing in there. I was like, oh man, he has it. He's got a gift for these animal pictures.
Yeah.
I really wanted you to see the one I did, Cats Rule, Dogs Drool. It was such a cute picture. It was a cat with a bat getting ready to hit a ball on the head of a dog. And
yeah,
I
I
don't
think
think you
you've seen
saw
that.
it.
I don't know if
Yeah.
well, because the thing is, because recently I've been teaching myself how to do 3D art, and even though I got a new laptop that's substantially more powerful than the one I had, I can still only I can either be rendering an image or I can be on the internet. I can't really do both. So
Right. It's
otherwise,
taken all your time.
rendering the image takes forever,
Wow.
especially if I want to do anything with like any kind of detail. I'm
Mm.
still trying to figure it out. I'm getting better at it, but
The coloring that you showed us so far, Bob Dub will be putting them in on
yeah.
at the end. You've really done some great art. I was really impressed by some of it.
Some of the book covers, especially like at least like this My Outbreak series and the one Get Out Alive book, um, the second one in the series, um, were actually done by somebody else.
Mhm.
Or I paid him to do the artwork. He actually, I would love to give him credit, but he doesn't want. He's like,
Oh,
I because I was talking, because I commissioned more than one piece from the guy over the years, and I'm like, I will gladly give you credit, but just to let you know, there's a sizable chance that at some point I will, incur the wrath of the proverbial 12 weirdos on Twitter.
mm.
And he's like, that's okay. I will just take your money.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to I'm trying to earn a living here. I don't need the trouble. I don't need trouble. I don't need to go borrowing trouble. I'm like, that's fine, dude. I get it.
Yeah. Indeed. Gosh, it's hard these
Granted,
days. Do you have
yeah,
you
yeah.
experienced any censorship, Robert?
I was, like on Facebook. Yeah, I'm fairly certain it was never anything I could prove. But it's like I was struggling to get to like 100 followers or whatever on my author's page on there, and I would get like 6 views on any post.
So you know
It's like I don't know. Is it because I'm shadow banned, or is it because you know, or or is it just because my audience is really that small, and it doesn't matter what I do. I can't seem to,
Yeah.
Facebook is a weird thing because I never really made much of a splash there at all. And it seems almost like they bottle you into some little corner where they think you fit. And I don't even see posts of my own friends on there. And it's like there's just a couple that they'll send my way. Otherwise, I have to literally type their name in and go look because I don't
yeah.
know if it's
Well, I
something
mean,
that they're doing.
I don't, I don't know because I haven't been on, I haven't been on Facebook in probably 2 or 3 years now. I don't
Oh,
think.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't go
because
on much.
like I still have my authors page up there, but I just have the pinned post. Yeah, I'm not posting. The the
Yeah,
pinned
it's not
post
really
is
worth it.
I'm not posting here anymore because of because I'm like 90% certain that I've been shadow banned.
Mhm.
So here's a link to here's my Minds channel. Here's my here's my other social media sites where you can get a hold, where you can see what I'm up to.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
I
have
did
to
that
have the
too.
Facebook page up because there's other, like, oh, share your Facebook. There's nothing there for like Minds or Parlor or Getter or whatever. But
Mhm. So, are you in other websites besides Minds? Do you go
uh,
to
I've got
Getter?
a Parlor thing. And a Getter. Um, I don't, I don't, it's one of those things that I've got to work on because I'm so busy doing other things that the social media kind of falls to the wayside because the whole promotion and marketing thing kind of falls to the wayside because I'm always yeah I'm always trying to I'm always doing something.
There's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
I know. I start reading. I'll be reading Erie stuff, and then I'm homeschooling. Plus, I cook part of the time, and people will say, "You didn't give me a very good answer." I'm like, "Do you know how many people I answered today?" Man, some mornings it's crazy how many. And there's days that I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. I have my days, but I try. And it's funny that we all met. I know I keep bringing it up, but mine's just is full of excellent writers. I know quite a few now. I hope we can interview a couple more soon. But there's something about that place that I know it may not be the most
Yeah. There's
flash in the pan, but it's kind of like I call it my home away from home. I've walked away
it's not
from it, but I keep coming back.
it's not perfect, but it's better than it's better than a lot of
Yeah, and I'm comfortable. I think that's I've told quite a few people now. It's kind of like my other family. I have a real family, and then I have my mind's family, and I. A lot of people use the news feed. I don't really do that. I go by who comes to my channel. I do go to the news feed, sure, every once in a while, but most of my interaction is people that I've known for a long time. And I know a lot of us don't. I've seen people saying, I don't want to get caught in this little bottleneck, but I like that little corner I made. I'll just stay in my little corner.
yeah. I mean, it's get a little niche and you can expand it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not nearly, my channel is kind of quiet compared to what it used to be, but it still serves its purpose. When I have had enough with my real world that's here, I can go there and I can see what other people are going through, and it's kind of nice to know that. And I have found some that aren't all that far away. That's one nice thing too. And there's others that, oh, someday I hope I can meet. I've had so much fun. It's opened my world up like we are right now. You're on the East Coast, I assume, or closer.
Yeah.
I'm in the Midwest. Bob Dub's in New
New
Zealand.
Zealand.
And we just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. Like that's
But
something that just,
they're hobbits. Are there hobbits? I want to know.
yeah.
Everywhere, everywhere, just running through the streets. I haven't been to the
Well,
I haven't
yeah.
been to the Hobbiton set, but my daughter went there, and she was like, it was better in the movie. It's just
Well,
like
yeah.
just little doors now and pretty flowers and things. So
Yeah.
sadly,
Yeah.
although
I
Legolas
mean, I
was my
suppose.
thing, honestly, Legolas. Apparently, everywhere he went in New Zealand, because they were here when they were filming, and
Yeah.
apparently everywhere he went, he took his bow with him. It was like this thing that people knew. If you ever saw
Yeah.
the crew, you would see the dude with his bow and arrow. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of them
I
got
mean,
fined, I think, for peeing in a public fountain.
Mhm.
So yes, we had shenanigans while they were here.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, I mean, I suppose it could be worse because, like, literally everything I know about Australia
Mm.
comes from the Mad Max movies, Crocodile Dundee, and that half an episode of The Crocodile Hunter I saw 15 years ago.
Oh, right.
So,
So I just need to say that the New Zealanders can't bear the Australians. Kind of
Really?
like the Canadians and the Americans. There's that sort of, yeah. New Zealand seems to, from my point of view, and I don't know if that's really the truth, but it seems to me that New Zealanders feel that they're better than the Australians because the Australians it was a prison colony.
Mm-hmm.
Here in New Zealand, they were free settlers. So there's
Oh.
a kind of a snobbery. It's not, I mean,
yeah.
it's not horrible, but yeah. So yes, if you spoke to them about Australia, those things of Australia, they would be Australians.
I don't know. I haven't been to Canada in ages, but
Yeah.
it's not since I was a little kid. But it's kind of funny because I have a bit of an accent.
Oh, yeah.
People, well, I notice it, yeah, but because my mom's side of the family is Dutch Irish, and my dad's side of the family is no, my dad's side is Dutch English. My mom's side is Scotch Irish. Sorry about that. So I kind of grew up with my grandparents, and so like it kind of a funny story. My granddad fought in World War II in the European theater, and apparently at one point, because his family sort of landed, went to Canada, and then just kind of came south. Yeah, apparently at some point.
Interesting.
Um, uh, but apparently there was some minor confusion because my granddad was on a training march in Northern England, in Northern Ireland, and actually happened to run into some cousins, and they were confused because my grandfather was wearing an American uniform,
I know.
and they're like, "Where'd you get that?" Shut up! Shut up!
Yes, yes, that's the feeling. Yes.
Yeah, it's like
Oh wow.
because they were expecting him if he was going to be over there fighting and to be wearing a Canadian uniform.
Yes, absolutely.
Why are you dressed like?
Why?
Why
Oh,
are you
wrong.
wearing an American uniform? Shut up!
Wow. Yeah. I was in Canada too, but it was a long, long time
Yeah.
ago. We went to Niagara Falls and stayed on the Canadian side. It was beautiful, but I haven't really seen much of Canada. I'm pretty land bound. I don't go very, very far from home. Haven't for a long time. Wish I could.
Well, you need a passport now to go to Canada.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't need a passport to go from state to state soon, the way things are. But the way my situation has been, I'm happy just to stay in my little room. I don't want to travel anymore. Not the way things are now.
I don't know. I just try to avoid metal detectors because I set them off.
Oh, yes, you would. That's
That just
right.
leads to uncomfortable conversations.
Yes.
Oh, I can imagine.
Because I'll be like, they'll want, I'll empty out my pockets and everything, and they'll want me, and I'll be like, I'm going to set it off. I have fake hips, all this stuff. And, I have a lot of metal in me right now, so I'm going to
Yeah.
set it off.
Yeah.
And they'll wand me, and it'll go off. And I'm like, they're like, empty your pockets. I'm like, I did. I told you. I told you I'm going. And finally, they're like, well, you need to empty your pockets. I'm like, I freaking told you. I'll start reaching for my belt buckle. I'm like, do I have to show you my stars? Because I will. 10 years in the Army. You think I haven't stood around in my underpants around a bunch of strangers before?
Really?
And then finally, they're just like, okay, just go.
Well, I'll have to remember that if I ever get that surgery. So you can do an MRI now or anything like that because of the metal?
I probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Mm. Well,
Yeah, it's.
the one thing I would ask you, I know it's a kind of a personal thing, but how long did it take you to recover from the hip surgery? I've heard some people say that it's long. Some others say that they got back pretty quick.
I was up and about in like a week, less than, because they actually had me, like, when they, like, a couple hours after they finished the surgery, they had me up and walking around.
Wow.
The physical therapist came in and grabbed me up out of the hospital bed, like, come on, what you going for? It was kind of funny, the second, because they did one, and then they did the other one later, and a buddy of mine was in the hospital for, he was having one of the belly band things put in to help you lose weight and stuff. And so, he happened to be having his surgery on the same day as I was having my hip replacement. And so, they finished I finished my surgery, and the physical therapist came in and grabbed me up, and we're walking down the hall, and I happened to see that, like on one of the monitor things on the wall that, oh, hey, there's where my buddy's room is. I'm like, hey, let's go, I go to the physical therapist. I'm like, hey, let's go visit my buddy. He's over there. And the physical therapist is like, it's on the other side of the hospital. Are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, of course, I'm fine. Let's go. What's going on? What's the hold up here? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I walked over there, like, and my buddy and his wife were like, how are you here?
That's
How
encouraging.
did you find us and why? I'm like, yeah, I saw your thing on the wall in the hospital, my end of the hospital. Here I am. How's it going?
I just don't. Oh, I just hate the idea of doing it right now. I don't want to have to wear a mask. I don't want to have to go through all the protocols. And I could be referred any day if I wanted to, but then I'd have to have work done on my back, and my heart isn't that great. I'm not even sure how good surgery would be. So I'm just sitting here doing nothing.
I mean, it's at least for me, it's been a 100% increase in just awesomeness.
Wow.
Because they had to do the replacements because I had essentially beaten my hip joints and my upper feet, the first like 3 or 4 inches of my femurs. I'd basically beaten them to death. So, by the time that they actually, not trying to get into too much detail because it's kind of gross, but basically by the time that they had done the replacement, finally approved the replacements and got them started, about the only thing keeping me from breaking my own legs with my body weight was the muscles in my thighs and my hips.
Wow.
So,
Gosh. That's
mine's considered severe, but I think I still got a lot of my socket there. I don't think I'm anywhere near as bad as you were.
yeah.
But I also have spinal stenosis, and they'd have to do surgery with that too for me to walk any better. And I don't even. That one kind of gets me nervous. So I'm sitting here doing, I'll do a little bit of the pain.
I mean, it's It's kind of weird, but I don't know if you've familiar with the Hellraiser franchise at all.
Oh yes, my son was
Yeah,
big in Hellraiser.
yeah. It's kind of weird, but like up until I actually got my hips replaced because I was in such I was in. I'm not gonna lie, I was in quite a lot of pain, like constantly.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny now because I had a recurring dream. um, you know, the labyrinth in the second Hellraiser movie. Chains and that eerie blue lighting and stuff, and I'm there, and you know the Hell Priest Pinhead just comes walking up, and because 10 years in the army, I know what to do when I think I'm in trouble. With somebody who's like way higher ranking than me, you just shut up and just kind of stare ahead and hope they keep walking. But you know, it was weird because he'd just walk up and he'd look right in my eyes, and I could tell that he was just trying to think like, "How did you get here?" And I'm like looking back at him like, "I have no clue." And then I'd wake up.
Yeah.
He's just looking at
My
me like,
son actually had that mask with the pins on it. He actually put nails in it and put them out facing out so he could wear
yeah.
it for Halloween.
Yeah, I actually met Doug Bradley at a horror convention a couple of years ago, back when we could actually have conventions. So
Yeah.
that was neat.
Yeah, things have
Either
changed so much.
it's weird because either I am much because I always thought he'd be it's weird how they always say, "Oh, I thought you'd be taller," but I really thought he'd be you know completely forgetting that it's been 40 years since Hellraiser came out. But it's I thought he'd be so much taller, and he barely like came up to my shoulder. It's like weird.
Wow.
Either I
Yeah,
am
you
very
get the
tall or
impression
he is
he's
very
big.
short. I have not decided.
Yeah, that's amazing. My son is motioning to me. He has dinner ready.
Ah,
So,
yay, food.
Yay.
yeah, yay, food. I haven't eaten since 10 o'clock this morning.
Uh-oh.
So,
Okay, well, it's been so interesting getting to know you, Robert, and we would really love to have you back again. But for this time, to take us out, have you got any final words for your audience?
The main thing I'm generally kind of going for with by writing, like I said, I want you to have fun. It's really sort of in the vein of because like I grew up watching the old drive-in sort of grindhouse horror movies. It's kind of like that, at least as far as the horror goes. Well, okay, the one fantasy novel I actually you can tell there was some Clive Barker influence in that too. In An Uncommon Burglar, I have a fantasy novelette. I don't know. There's the word things that I keep seeing different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, this is a novel. Oh, this is a novelette, and nobody can seem to freaking agree. But yeah, it's one of those things. I just want everybody to just pick them up and have fun and enjoy themselves and get spooked by it. That's great. Because it's kind of what I'm going for here. But
Mm-hmm.
just to have fun in a book.
yeah, I just want everybody to have fun. Is that so wrong? If my books were made into movies, they'd be either the kind of thing to see either like the direct to video or streaming these days, or grindhouse and drive-in, and the fun B horror movies, or a fun summer action flick. Not Oscar bait material, authors, it's a little too highbrow for me, I'm a writer, damn it.